First of all, moment of silence for 2021 commences now. Moment of silence over. Goodbye 2021, and hello to 2022. 2021 was certainly a year, wasn't it? I'm very much anticipating 2022, but before we jump into the new year, it's time to talk about those horror films that were just exceptional in 2021. It was quite a unique year for horror, with a lot offered on both the small and the large screen, both in terms of series and television, and also in terms of course, film. A lot of the films this year were pushed back films from 2020, of course, adjusting for the pandemic and all of that good stuff. With that being said, I did not see every horror film of the year, which means my opinions could change upon watching said films in the future. Movies like Resident Evil, Welcome to Raccoon City, or Nightmare Alley, or any of the other ones, because there were a lot of films that came out this year, over 1,200 or something crazy like that. That doesn't all pertain to horror, but horror is certainly a big enough genre where there's a lot of horror films coming out. I really wanted to see Antlers, I really wanted to see Ghostbusters Afterlife. I have not seen all of the movies that could qualify for this video. So keep that in mind. These were my opinions, and some of these were a little bit difficult. I'm going to jump into my least favorite of the year, followed by some honorable mentions, and then I'll jump into my top 5 for the year, and then some anticipated horror films for 2022. Sound good? Alright, let's start off with the worst horror film of the year. An award that I don't like to give because I really do respect all of the work put into movies. Being someone who likes to do movies, I find a lot of value in them. But there was one movie that disappointed me more than any other on this list. It was really upsetting. Actually, if you go back to my video just like this one from 2020, I talked about my most anticipated horror films for 2021, and this was one of them, and unfortunately it just sucked. I'm sorry, there's no way around it. I didn't even make a review on it because I was just so upset by it, and it was Willys Wonderland. Now, if you saw Willys Wonderland, or you know anything about it, you know it's a Nicolas Cage romp, where basically he dukes it out with the Five Nights at Freddy's avatars in a different fashion. I was really hyped for this movie because all I wanted... Listen, I'm not a snob when it comes to this kind of stuff. All I wanted was a fun, entertaining schlock fest, and I couldn't even get that. This movie was boring. There were no stakes. Nicolas Cage had nothing to fight against. He killed all of the monsters with ease. There's an energy drink subplot that goes nowhere. He doesn't talk. Like, I understand some of the choices. I assume it was tongue-in-cheek in nature. I get all of that. I'm not a stranger to this kind of B-movie schlock. But it really was just a waste of time, and it's really upsetting that this is the movie that we got. I do have the Banana Splits movie, and I'm so tempted to watch it because anything could have been better than Willys Wonderland. I'm sorry, Nick Cage, I love you, and I really wanted this movie to be better than it was, unfortunately. But hey, maybe you saw it and you liked it. Kudos to you. In terms of honorable mentions, I do have a couple. The first one is kind of a dishonorable mention and an honorable mention. It's The Night House, which was a movie that within the first half of it, I was so hyped. I'm like, this is going to be the best horror film of the year. It is like the inception of horror at the beginning. Like, that was the premise build-up. Or like a Christopher Nolan type horror film where it's like you go back in time and there's ghosts. I'm like, oh, this is going to be good. And it goes nowhere by the end. Nothing happens of interest. There's a very basic ghost plot, for something that I thought was going to be so incredibly cool, it really dropped the ball, and I was quite upset by how The Night House turned out. So, that was The Night House. Might be worth a watch. It had really high reviews, so I was expecting something going into it, and it just did not match those expectations, but it definitely wasn't as bad as Willys Wonderland by a long shot, especially technically, but it was disappointing. Let's just say that. It was disappointing because the first half was so well done. Other honorable mentions. These were ones that could have been in the top 5, but there were a few others that I wanted to highlight. First up is The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It, which you can watch my review on this and a lot of the films in this list. I really liked The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It. I've never been the biggest fan of the Conjuring series. Like, I don't hate it, but it's certainly not in my top horror films or anything like that. I think it's a great modern haunted house franchise, and this one did it well. It was fun, it was entertaining, it was cool, but there were a few others that I wanted to highlight a bit more. Out of the same vein, Spiral is another movie that I quite enjoyed. The first time I wasn't a huge fan. If you watch my review of it, you know I had some technical issues with it. But the second time around, I enjoyed it a whole lot more. I was a lot less stiff about it. I'm a big Saw fan. And I enjoyed it. The twist was lackluster. I saw it coming. The villain reveal was weak. And besides the traps, there were some plot elements I feel like that could have been made better. I liked the inclusion of comedy from Chris Rock. There were things and elements I liked, but it wasn't as good to make it into the top 5. So with that said, let's jump into the top 5 horror films of 2021. As much as I love the big horror blockbusters, like I mentioned The Conjuring and Spiral and some of the other ones that are going to pop up on this list in just a minute, I can't help but appreciate the smaller works that were put out in the box office this year. And the first one on my list, number 5, is going to go to Fear of Rain. Fear of Rain was a movie that I didn't review on my channel, and one of my fears was that no one was going to watch the review because not a lot of people saw this movie, unfortunately. And I was wrong to not review this movie because it's a really good movie. It was locally made and shot. I shouldn't say it was a local film, per se, to my area. It did get a wide theatrical release, but it was minute in its box office take. It didn't make a lot of money, but it was made locally, and it actually stars the woman who was also in The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It, which was a nice connection between these movies. The movie stars this girl, the girl who was, I think, in, she was in, like, Jumanji, and she was also in one of the Annabelle movies, I'm pretty sure, another Conjuring connection. But basically, this girl, she suffers from delusions, and she doesn't know whether her next-door neighbor is a kidnapper or not, and it makes for a lot of interesting dynamics between her and her father and her mother. Her father's played by Harry Connick Jr., so that was an interesting little nod to throw into the movie. I liked it. It was a lot of fun. It was well written. It had some good suspense. It was almost more of a thriller than a horror film, but I wanted to highlight it in my top 5 of the year. So there you go. Fear of Rain. Go check it out. Go support a smaller filmmaker and see what a really clever script and good acting performances, for the most part, can do in a horror film. At number 4 is a movie. Well, they're all movies. But it's a movie that, when I first started watching it, I'm like, this is so cliche. Why is it like this? This is a good filmmaker. What is happening? And then, at the halfway mark, I'm like, okay, something's gotta change. And it does. And it turns into the most bonkers, bizarre, crazy movie of the year, and I loved every minute of it. Number 4 goes to Malignant. If you watched Malignant, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you haven't, check out my review of Malignant. It's really worth a watch, but also just watch the movie. James Wan wrote and directed this one, and it is about a woman who, I'm trying to beat around the bush here, is about a woman who has these kind of psychic visions and can see murders that somehow tie back to her. It's a really interesting film. At the beginning, it was very generic, but by the end, you're completely caught off guard with the bizarre plot twist that it takes, and it was amazing to watch. It felt like I was sucked back into the 80s basket case era of just freakish horror movies. I loved it. James Wan, do another one. I'm not another Malignant per se, but another movie like this, because I think the world needs another Malignant. At number 3, Trace, we have a movie that I expected to like. I did like. I didn't like it as much as I thought I would, but it was still so competently made, well written, and well produced that I had to highlight it here. Candyman. Not going to say that 5 times while looking into this camera/mirror. Again, you can watch my review of it on my channel. It is produced by Jordan Peele, directed by Nia DaCosta. Very well produced movie. My issue with this Candyman is it was a little preachy in terms of what it was trying to push to the audience in terms of modern political stances, which I don't have a problem if politics are put into a movie, especially if it's a part of the plot, which this one does have the booster of that it can fit into this plot, but I felt like it was a little heavy-handed at times. Even with that said, though, the whole integration of the Candyman lore was really well done. You can tell that the creators of this movie had a passion for this story and really liked and harkened back to the original Candyman, which is why it works just so darn well. Candyman was a really fun treat, and if we get more Candymans, whatever, in the future, I'm all for it. Bring on the Candyman. I should have done the hook. No, not with my nose. Whatever. Number 2. We're in our top 2. You're going to be really shocked by this. Really shocked. Number 2 is Halloween Kills. Now, you might be shocked for a few reasons. The first reason is you could say, hauntformer, I thought you loved Halloween Kills. Shouldn't it be, like, number 1? Or maybe you're saying Halloween Kills was so bad. How could you put it in your top 5 at all? I don't have an answer for you either way. The reason it's not number 1 is because there's one really special movie that deserves number 1. And the reason that it's not on the list at all is because I really liked Halloween Kills for all of the gripes that fans and critics seem to have with this movie. I loved it the entire time. It was really, in a word, simple. But then again, Halloween has never been complex. People were saying the plot was weak, or it was too over the top. Everyone, I love Halloween. I love Michael Myers. I've seen all of the movies. The thing is, though, when has Halloween been that complex? When has it not been a little ham-fisted and over the top? Halloween has been like this forever, and I really enjoyed the heck out of Halloween Kills. It was a really fun ride. I'm excited to see how it closes and Halloween ends, which I'll get to in a minute. But, man, I gotta tell you, Michael Myers being back was awesome. And now for number 1. One that you probably didn't expect to hear is number 1. And again, this might fall into Halloween Kills territory where you're just gonna say, why? Why is this here? It was a movie that was unique, an excellent story, a very exotic presentation, and I think that presentation, the way it's worded, the way it's delivered, the way it's shot, could throw people off, and the reason why a lot of people thought it was either funny or didn't like it. But I loved it. I really appreciated the message of the movie. I loved the horror of the movie. I really respect this director. Shyamalan, you did it again, you sly devil. Old. I loved Old. It's a movie that is timeless and both full of time. It is both very direct and in your face and also subtle in some ways. I really did enjoy it. You can watch my review of it. I was really stunned with how much I loved it. And, you know, you might say that it's dumb, and I respect your opinion, my news resolution is that I can talk on camera properly, but at the end of the day, I loved Old. It was great. It's rare that you see a horror film tackle the fear of aging so well, and everything that you would expect to be in a premise like that is in this. I can't give Shyamalan as much as his credit is due. I can't give him all of the credit because it is based off of a graphic novel, which also deserves your attention because the idea, the plot, comes from said graphic novel. Well, there you go. My top 5 horror films of the year, but I'm not done yet because now we're going to talk about the horror films approaching for 2022. Now, I was pretty well versed in the 2021 movies. I've grown accustomed to them over the past year. But for 2022, I'm going to need my handy-dandy iPad to make sure I'm getting everything right for what's coming up. Because there were a few honorable mentions that I wanted to talk about before jumping into the top 5. Let me make sure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. It looks like there's only one honorable mention. I'm sure there's more. I mean, Morbius looks interesting enough. I'm not crazy about the character. Yes, it's a Marvel horror film, which is unique. Same goes for Doctor Strange, which is cool because it's Sam Raimi. I'm more inclined to see that. But there were a few others that really caught my attention, and I think the number one honorable mention is going to be Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which is yet another installment in the Leatherface ongoing saga. This one, it looks like it's going straight to Netflix? Question mark? I don't entirely know. I'm not well versed in Texas Chainsaw mythology. I've only seen the original one, and I've kind of not seen any of the other ones yet. I do have some of them to watch, hopefully in 2022, to accompany this new one. So while I'm not as hyped as probably some of you out there, I am excited to see what new things they can bring to the table in terms of Texas Chainsaw, both in terms of homaging and harkening back to the original, and also expanding this storyline forward. It should be interesting to see. Now, on to the top 5 most anticipated horror films of 2022. Up first, and I think this comes out in the year, that's why I'm counting it, Evil Dead Rise. Another Evil Dead movie. I don't know a lot about the plot. I see that there's like a business office tower high-rise building, which really piques my curiosity. Is this like Die Hard with zombie demon Necronomiconian creatures? I don't know at the end of the day. But what I do know is that it's a new Evil Dead. The original peeps are behind it, at least producing it, giving their love to it. And if they're giving their blessing, I have to give mine. I love the Evil Dead saga, and I'm excited to see where it goes. At number 4, in terms of most anticipated movies, this is the one that I needed help with. It is called Don't Worry, Darling. This is a weird one for me to put on this list, and I'll tell you why. Because it looks like, again, more of a thriller than it does a horror film. But it stars Harry Styles, which is interesting, and Florence Pugh. But the plot, the premise, is what has hooked me here. It's a movie that's directed by Olivia Wilde, and it is about a 1950s couple in which the husband's company is like taking over their lives, and the housewife, Florence Pugh, discovers that there's some bad stuff going on. The less I know about these upcoming movies, the better. I like to go into movies pretty blind. I don't like to watch and analyze trailers forever. I'm really excited to see what this movie offers, because that plot sounds intriguing to me and my taste. So, let's see what you got, movie. Let's see what you got. Maybe next New Year's I'm going to say it's my favorite movie of the year. Who knows? Who really knows? At number 3, we have Scream, which is a movie I'm excited to review in but weeks. It's crazy how fast this movie has approached. I'm so excited. If you watched my video a few months back in Haunttober, I talked about how Scream is my favorite franchise of horror. This movie kind of scares me though, because, I don't know if you knew this, but usually January is the graveyard shift for movies. It's where movies go to die. The movies they don't think are going to do well, they put them in January. So why is my beloved Scream coming out in January? It's weird. I don't quite get it, but I'm giving it the benefit of the doubt. Scream has not proven me wrong yet, except for season 3 of that television show, but whatever. Doesn't matter. The original cast is back. Kevin Williamson is producing it. The guys from Ready or Not are directing and writing it. I'm ready for it. Ghostface, it's been a while. It's been since 2011, over 10 years. Bring it on. With the sad passing of Wes Craven, I hope this pays tribute to his fine work very well. At number 2, we have, of course, Halloween Ends, which will wrap up this trilogy of Michael Myers and Laurie Strode. Finally, I hope, giving us a resolution to that conflict that's been building and building and building. The cliffhanger ending of Halloween Kills, which I won't spoil for you, leads in so well to what I hope will be a great final chapter to this saga, and I kind of hope it will actually finally end Michael Myers so we can move on to new content, because as much as I love Halloween, don't get me wrong, I've seen him, I love him, Michael needs to rest, and evil dies tonight. I have to say, I'm sorry. And finally, number 1, my most anticipated horror film of the year, solely because of the name attached to it, Nope. Yep, Nope. Jordan Peele's third directed horror movie. He did Get Out, which was my favorite modern horror movie of forever. Like, one of the best modern horror films, in my opinion. Us, which was also one of my favorite modern horrors. I know a lot of people didn't like it. I loved it. It was like my favorite movie of that year. And now we have Nope. He hasn't steered me wrong either time, and when I just talked about Candyman, he didn't direct it, but he did produce it, and it was very well produced. So I have high hopes for his work. His name is kind of like a seal of approval, and therefore, Jordan Peele, Nope is my number 1 most anticipated film of 2022. Let's see what you got for round 3. Everyone, thank you so much for watching. I had a blast celebrating 2021 with you. I loved meeting so many of your wonderful faces at the flagship Spirit opening. I love reading all of your comments. I love hearting them. This year, on a personal note, was a mix of high and lows. If you remember at the beginning of the year, my best childhood friend, Jared, whom was a frequent participant of this channel, passed away, and so that really rocked the start of this year, but it balanced out between all of the love and support that I've gotten from both here and from above. So I really want to thank all of you for a great 2021. I have so much exciting content planned for 2022, so get ready. And remember, for all things Halloween, this is hauntformer.